Hello everyone and welcome to Don't Be Bored, and welcome back to Carl, the designer of Kelp. I've interviewed him here on the channel before and well, we're going to dive into some more questions. Obviously, if you've not gone and seen that previous interview, go and check that one out, but otherwise, here we go. And well, first of all, congratulations on the very successful Kickstarter campaign. Has the adrenaline worn off yet?
Thank you. Valid question. Yeah, it was certainly an exciting time back in November when the Kickstarter happened. It really went beyond my wildest dreams, and I was just bowled over with the success, really. And I'm still relishing in it now, I must say. But I'm also just really excited for backers to get their hands on the game and for everybody to be finally able to play it. So really looking forward to that later in the year.
Now that the game is going to be officially made, it's sort of handed over from your hands to the publisher, how does that feel as the designer? Is it sort of hard to let go?
Not for me. Wonderball are a fantastic publisher, and I've been really fortunate to work closely with them for the past couple of years. And they've made a lot of creative, savvy, wise decisions. And I've been really fortunate that they've also kept me in the loop and invited me to have a lot of input as well as we've gone through this together kind of as a team. And now I'm also getting a lot of behind the scenes looks at really cool stuff as they go through the manufacturing process and get ready with all of that. So yeah, it's just been a pleasure working with them, really, and I feel fortunate because it might have been different with a different publisher. It's bigger that a bigger publisher might not have had as much time for me as they've had, and so I've been really fortunate in those terms.
It's great that they are taking the time to sort of keep you as the designer in the loop. That's really good to hear that the publisher is doing that. Now, over to the sort of design process, which we're going to dive into a little bit more. Last time you've referred to it as sort of experience-led rather than theme or mechanic-led, but the game's turned out pretty thematic. Was there sort of a point where you had to pivot to try and get that theme into the game?
Well, for Kelp, the core theme, the mechanisms, they were all there as well from the inception. It was just that the central experience that I wanted players to have on both sides was kind of like my guiding star, my North Star, if you like, throughout the process. So whenever I was playtesting or making decisions, I kind of check back in on that, like, am I achieving that goal of I wanted the kind of heart-pounding experience of a back against the wall thrill of danger as the octopus. And I wanted the shark to be building up in power and hunting down the octopus and feeling that kind of deduction and all of that. So a lot of the decisions I made along the way of the theme and how to implement the theme and how to implement the mechanisms were just feeding back into that central experience. And I've also had to do a lot of research as well about the two species of animals, so the common octopus and the pajama shark, and also their relationship. And because it's after watching My Octopus Teacher, that captures this kind of interaction, but it was only really scratching the surface of what happens frequently between these two animals, because that's the only part of the world where they interact is in the kelp forest of South Africa, off the coast of South Africa. So I read some pretty heavy research papers. I watched all the documentaries and YouTube clips and things that I could find about the animals and about their relationship, and got in some pretty deep holes in terms of hunting patterns of pajama sharks and the particular behaviors that common octopuses and other octopuses have demonstrated. And that I tried to implement that in the theme as well, in the mechanisms as well as much as possible. So things like the way that the shark moves is the shark's always moving forward. It's quite difficult to turn around on a pin head and stuff like that. Some of the ways that it was implemented in the card abilities and card effects, trying to also match them to and map them to the behavior of the octopus. So things like a cloud of ink, for example, one of the cards, you can see that there. They reveal the octopus and then disappear off in some with some blocks and get shuffled in with some blocks. And so that's one of the ways that their behavior I tried to capture it of that animal. Same with things like the confrontation cards, the way that the common octopus has been known to lose a limb to escape, or to put its tentacles inside the gills of the shark, try and suffocate it. All of those kind of things led to mechanisms that worked well. And so, I was kind of a combination of all of these three elements, the mechanisms and the theme coming together to drive that core experience.
I love how deep you went in to sort of research and learn about the theme, and like I say, the game does seem very thematic as a result, but was there any time where you had to sort of put your designer hat on and go, okay, I know it's not going to be accurate, but we need to do this for the game purpose rather than thematically?
Yeah, of course. I mean, in any game, I think there's a certain amount of abstraction that you have to do. I mean, why does the octopus draw cards, and why does the shark roll dice? It's just that's kind of an element of the game that has to be there to make it function, of course, and isn't thematic at all, really. But throughout the process, I did try and make decisions where if I felt like something was more mechanical and didn't really fit into the theme as well, then I would try and cut that out, or streamline it, or change it. For example, in one of the early versions of Kelp, whenever the shark rolled doubles, there were these tokens that they could flip over and activate to give them special powers. But it didn't really fit in thematically, and it was something cool mechanically, but it was excessive, and so didn't really go towards that North Star goal of mine. So I found a way to chop it out. And then other things like, actually, the version that I pitched to Wonderball, in that version, some terminology was different in the game. So the octopus had an effect which was to buy cards from the market, and those two terms were kind of mechanical terms, but we discussed that through the development process, and we're like, well, is there a better term that we could use that still gives the same idea? And so we settled on learn. So the octopus, instead of buying cards from the market, it learns abilities, and it learns new abilities that are on cards that it can add to its deck. So it's things like that as well that we've tried to find ways to make it more thematic, and cut out the extra.
I don't know, a very clever octopus might wander to the market, you never know. Now, dialing back to sort of the actual prototype phase, what did that first thing actually look like? Was it paper and pen, stickers on dice, all that sort of stuff? What did it really look like?
Yeah, I mean, I started really pretty rough, just paper. This was the first board back in the first version of Kelp. It was. I didn't have the blocks back then. The octopus actually played a more of a kind of a deck builder where the hands of cards were laid out on the board, and then they'd flip certain cards over, and one of the cards had the octopus on it, and you would try and move these face down cards around and flip them over to manipulate other ones and gain abilities and effects and things like that. But I started out for that with just paper taped together and sharpied on, and this was the first version of this. I had a player board with what I thought was a witty pun, the Shocktopus. And a lot of these mechanisms in that first version changed, and I knew that was going to be the case, that it was going to be pretty rough to start out with, so there was no point investing a lot of time with art and things like that. Just some very basic things. I mean, I'd gone to some degree, like there's my artistic impression of Kelp. And then that lasted, I'd say that prototype lasted maybe 1 or 2 plays before I realized I needed to change things already, and so kind of gradually moved up to something with a little bit more color and some more detail, just to help players to distinguish what was going on in the game. And I started to put die values on and things like that. And in this version, or not quite this version, but in one of them, the shark had like movement patterns that it had to follow. Yeah, maybe it's this one. Yeah. So you can see here that these little sharks are actually also arrows that are pointing in certain directions, and the shark would follow these tracks and then get to make decisions about which direction it went in as it circled around the board. But I ultimately found a way to make that much more free, so that the shark was actually making more choices about where it would circle. And so things gradually grew, and I started to add some very basic graphic design and some icons in play. You can see on this one, I'm starting to, things were starting to settle a little bit at that point. Still using the deck builder though, so I wasn't investing too much time, just grabbing quick bits of art and sticking them on. And then finally made a big jump forwards when I eliminated the need for blocks eliminated the need for cards and started using blocks on the board instead, and just having the cards as the deck building element controlling the blocks. And that's when I started to move into this shape, which became ultimately what was in the final game. Is this architecture is very close to the final game. And so went through loads and loads of versions. There's countless ones here, just piles of them. I iterated on it tens, if not hundreds of times with different versions, and that's not to mention the cards and the cards for both sides and all the different tokens and things like that. So it's been on a long journey, the game.
I absolutely love the Shoptopus. Great pun there. And to see the real sort of pen and paper beginnings and that journey that Kelp went on. That's absolutely fantastic to see. Now, was there anything that, because you were prototyping like that, was there anything that sort of was hard and that sort of maybe impacted the design flow?
Yeah, so like I was just saying, the first version of the game had these, the octopus was basically all cards, no blocks. So the octopus being one of the cards, moving them around, which meant at the start of the game they had various different versions. They had between 20 and I think maybe even up to 24 cards at some point, started out face down on the board. And it was clear early on that was a lot of memory, a lot of things to keep track of, and it took me a while to work out how to alleviate a lot of that memory, in fact almost all of it. And that was when I finally reached the idea of, separating the cards, taking them away from the board, them just being in hand management and a deck building game, but having blocks instead. Having some kind of token instead. And the initial idea was, what if it was 9 tokens in a grid and you flip the tokens over, but that still had a high memory element because you had to remember what the tokens were when they were face down. So then we realized I needed something like Stratego blocks, or something that was information for one player to see but not the other. But Stratego tokens are these like nice rounded towers often, and they can't be laid down because the shark also needs to see them at some point easily. So it took a little bit of a while kind of digging through the games in my collection and thinking like, what have I got that I could use? And I had a copy of Jenga lying around somewhere, and I tried the Jenga blocks, and that was like, maybe this could work if I could find something similar. And finally, I just started looking around in thrift shops and in second-hand shops in Brussels, and got really lucky that I just saw a Mahjong set for €1, brand new, never been opened, in a shop that had just a very small selection of board games. There was this Mahjong set, so I snapped that up, and it worked perfectly, and that form factor carried on right through, and that's gone right through to the manufacturing. I mean, Wonderball have now put this beautiful artwork on it and some color into the Mahjong blocks and the design engraved on the back, so much better than the ones I have. But the form factor is essentially the same, the function of them. And I think back, if I hadn't found that Mahjong set, I don't know what I would have settled on eventually. And it really drove the process forward in a positive way from that point. So yeah, I'm grateful for whoever handed in that Mahjong set for sure.
Amazing that a thrift store purchase really has impacted a board game design. You can see that with the Mahjong-like tiles in the final game. Now, was there anything when you were designing the game and going through that sort of blind play testing that, you got feedback? Was there anything there that was a surprise to you?
Well, the game's been through two big chunks of unguided playtesting, I would say. The first chunk was before I pitched the game, I really wanted to have it in as best state as I could at that point. So I was doing some unguided playtests and got some good feedback at that point. But it was mainly to just do with clarity of the rules and some things to do with language and terminology rather than any big game-breaking things or anything like that. And with Wonderball, we've had quite a robust rulebook for a long time now. So before the campaign, during the campaign, after the campaign, there's been a lot of unguided playtests taking place that Wonderball have led, that I've led, but also that the community have been able to do through Tabletop Simulator. And again, there's been no big shifts, no game-breaking things, no big changes to the balance. It's just mainly been tweaking terminology and trying to streamline some of those things. So, for example, we've changed things like on the shark cards, instead of it saying before move that an action takes place, it now takes place during draw and roll, which is essentially the same thing, but just makes it clearer for players that they know exactly where in the turn structure things should take place. And it's been things like that, some streamlining in the rules and so on. But one of the big changes that did happen, or one of the last big changes that did happen, was during the Essen spiel when I pitched the game to Wonderball. I had a table at the Protozone there in the author's workshop. I had it for the 4 days, so I was demoing my game, and I was also inviting publishers to come and play it and see it and things like that as well. And I got a lot of people play test the game there, and there was one couple that were really enthusiastic about it. They came back. They played it on the Thursday and then came back every day for the rest of the con and played it every day and brought friends to play it. But they also gave me some really good feedback as well. And one of the things that I changed after that was I used to have two tokens that were the action tokens that the octopus flipped over as they played cards or drew back up to their hand size. And they were like, you probably don't need these. You can probably just play them out into slots on the board or on the player board. And that was really helpful. That helped me see something that as a big way to streamline it. And now it is just so much easier. The octopus just plays these cards out into particular slots, where there's also a little guide for what they could do with the 3 actions on their turn, some icons there. So that was very, very helpful. And they also suggested, wouldn't it be cool if there was an octopus miniature and it held the hand size token and it kind of wrapped its tentacles in, and they were really kind and offered, we could probably come up with a design for that if you were interested. And so we talked a little bit more about that after the convention. But then the game got signed, and Wonderball liked that idea and took it on board themselves, and that's what became part of the deluxe version. And so those were the kind of last 2 big changes, and those came from players of the game back in Essen in 2022. So yeah, really grateful to that couple and.
Unfortunately, it does seem that Kelp has been a bit of a victim of counterfeit versions and products being sold online, and that's absolutely horrible to see, and that's from my perspective, let alone from yours. And there is a quote that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Is that a silver lining at all to you?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that is the case, and although now Wonderball have managed to get a lot of it under control and get lots of the listings taken down, it is still happening for lots of publishers, and I think it's only going to become a bigger problem in the industry as the AI tools and bots and things like that become much more available and easy to use. We're going to see it happen more unless some of these online marketplaces can get control over it. Wonderball, they've talked about how they tackle the problem in some of the podcasts and articles online that they've contributed to recently. But for me, I suppose the silver lining was just how incredible the backers were when Wonderball announced it to them. So shortly after it started happening, they put an update out to the backers, and the reaction was massive. It was just... I couldn't believe how many people were willing to go onto these online marketplaces, report listings, contact customer support. It was just a huge campaign from the people in the community around the game, just tackling it. And thanks to that army of people, so many of them got taken down, and they were popping up just as quickly as they were taken down. But it led us through to contacts. It led Wonderball through to some contacts at Amazon and places like that, where they were actually able to get some more comprehensive support and dealing with it. But the incredible generosity of the people, the backers, with their time and their willingness to help out Wonderball and us with this problem was really overwhelming and impressive. So yeah.
It's great that you did get that sort of army of supporters, those followers that really helped you out. And that's really nice to see that sort of the board game community sort of did huddle around you and helped out. That's a really pleasant thing, a really nice thing to sort of hear that did happen. Where could people go to actually get a copy of Kelp if they wanted one?
Well, at the time of recording, the pledge manager is still open, so you can go to kelpgame.com and you can find a link there for the pledge manager. And if you're watching this in the future, well, I hope that it's available in retail in your area, but the best way to find out would also be to go to kelpgame.com for more information, and you'll hopefully have everything there that you need, or a contact that you can reach Wonderball at. But yeah. Thank you, Oliver, for taking the time to interview me and ask me more questions about my design process with Kelp. It's been a pleasure talking to you again, and all the best. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thanks to Carl for coming on and answering a load of questions. Some absolutely amazing answers to listen to. Hopefully you've all enjoyed the answers as well. And of course, the link in the description box downstairs will be where you can go and check out more about the game, and if you want to jump in on that sort of late pledging, etc., that's where you can go. So you don't need to go and find it, link in the description. And well, until next time, I hope you have a fabulously Kelpy-filled good day.